Now, yesterday, the Republicans, along with the help of Democrats, passed a bank reform package that will almost certainly lead to another financial disaster. According to Business Insider, the legislation known as the Crapo bill, after Mike Crapo, I know that's not how you say it, it's Mike Crapo, but I call him Crapo for obvious reasons, would increase the threshold for a bank to qualify as a systemically important financial institution, or sci-fi, right? Which, by the way, I enjoyed watching that channel. Anyway, serious story. So the banks, sci-fi banks, are subject to increased regulation under Dodd-Frank. Now, that includes the need to undergo the Federal Reserve stress test that modeled the bank's ability to weather financial and economic downturns without causing a threat to the larger economy. That's, of course, in response to the financial crisis, when all these different banks failed, and it basically caused a cascade chain reaction of different banks failing, which caused economic crash. Now, the Crapo bill, as I said before, would immediately increase the sci-fi threshold to banks that hold over $100 billion in assets from the current $50 billion level. It would raise that threshold to $250 billion after 18 months. So this is a pretty significant piece of legislation because it would help banks like SunTrust, BB&T, and Fifth Third. Now, in all, the number of institutions subject to the harsher rules would drop to 12 from 38. Now, here's the problem with that, right? So, if you lower these, again, you raise that threshold, then you make it harder for us to watch banks like Countrywide. Now, Countrywide is essentially the face of subprime of the subprime mortgage crisis, right? They held about $210 billion in assets when they crashed. So that would have put them below the stress testing threshold. So they say, oh no, we're looking out for small and medium banks, right? Well, according to Mike Crapo and the rest of the bill, the people who support the bill, $210 billion is a small, medium-sized bank. But no, that kind of bank can cause massive damage to the economy if it crashes, if it fails. So this could end up leading to another mortgage banking crisis. Now, other changes include an exemption for banks with less than $10 billion in assets from the so-called Volcker rule. Now, that's more of a consumer side, right? Consumer rule that helps regular people. Now, that prohibits depository institutions from engaging in proprietary trading and investing in certain hedge funds and private equity firms. So the whole point of that is to stop them from taking systemic risks with depositor money. Now, it would also force credit reporting agencies like Equifax and TransUnion to give consumers free credit freezes, but it also shields the agency from certain class action lawsuits and allow the firm to offer credit checks for mortgage applications. Now, there's also things in there where it allows for more discriminatory lending against African American and Latino borrowers, including allowing them to have higher interest rates than white peers for the same kinds of loans. So, yay, look at that. One good thing in there and then a whole bunch of terrible stuff. Now, of course, the claim is we're not defending the big banks. We're defending the small banks. I mean, look, we know the big banks are a problem, but these medium-sized banks are being crushed by regulation. Well, that turns out not to be true. The Intercept's David Dayen reported that members of Congress and bankers alike are only using this small community banks line as a fig leaf for the actual purpose of giving yet another handout to Wall Street behemoths like Citigroup. In fact, let me show you how these small community banks are actually faring under the current regulatory regime. In the third quarter of 2017, the FDIC reported that 96% of the nation's 5,294 community banks were profitable, up from just 70% in the depths of the crisis in 2009. 96% profitable, that's really, really good. Now, those banks, the profits for those banks are actually higher than ever. With greater loan growth than the big banks, community banks would argue that the consolidation and bank failures have weeded out those who cannot compete. However, those failures have been nearly non-existent and consolidation is in line with normal historical patterns. So what all that means is that these small banks that are supposedly being crushed by these overbearing regulations are actually doing fantastic. They're doing really, really well. So then why then are we trying to deregulate them when they're actually doing fairly well? Well, it's because the big banks want to make more money. It's about profit. It's about being able to take more risk. Why, if they take more risk, they get more reward. And that's the whole thing. Now, here's a real reason why this passed. It's not to help community banks. It's because of the money. Now, let's go to our wall of shame here. For the Democrats, we know the Republicans love deregulating banks. It's not even worth pointing them out individually because they all support this bill. Here's the Democrats, though. Senator Michael Bennet received $1,909,757 from the banking industry. Senator Tom Carper got $170,810. Chris Coons, who voted for the bill, $373,599 from the industry. Joe Donnelly received $448,000 from the industry. Maggie Hassan, just over $420,000. Heidi Heitkamp, of course, $511,039. Doug Jones from Alabama, he received $417,406 from the industry, and of course voted in favor. All these Democrats voted in favor of deregulating the banks. Congratulations. All that work went into electing Doug Jones. And of course he votes for Republicans 50 to 60% of the time. Wow. Congratulations. Nice work resisting. I know. His opponent was a literal child molester. Still, you think we could do better. Anyway, as Democrats. Following Doug Jones, of course, is Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine received $921,903 from the industry and, of course, had voted in favor of this legislation. Angus King is an independent, but often votes with the Democrats, received $115,563. Joe Manchin of West Virginia, of course, $289,000. Claire McCaskill received $809,000. Bill Nelson, $281,000. Gary Peters, $648,000. Gene Shaheen, $319,000. Debbie Stabenow, $484,000. John Tester, $782,000. And Senator Mark Warner, who received $1,377,713 from the financial industry and had voted in favor of this piece of legislation, which is a piece of crap, or a piece of crap-o. So, I'm so glad we have Democrats out there that are looking out for the little guy. So glad to see. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.